Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Partners in Education. And usually, Partners in Education, we talk about it being pie at the bakery, but we're doing something a little different this month. We've got Eric Miller joining us right now, and you got a whole crew of people. You guys coming in here, we playing football, or what's going on?
We're taking over the place,
Brought the whole team.
Yeah, we did.
No, we've got a really exciting opportunity today to get to know our partners at Keystone, and we're going to be educating everybody about what you guys do, because you do some really cool things. Each month thus far, we've talked about one specific area. You know, we talked about one area for the whole program, but today we're going to kind of talk about all the different things that you guys do to offer assistance. And all of these guys that are out here we're going to be chatting with, they're from all over the place, aren't they?
Well, yeah, we cover 11 states, you know, with boots on the ground, as we say, but people actively engaged out there trying to get people help.
Are these guys going to be wearing boots?
They all, I don't know if they actually wear boots.
I'm just kidding.
But tremendous team. I'm proud of these guys.
Seem like nice guys, too.
Well, I think what we assembled is probably, I think, is the envy of the industry in terms of not only the character of these guys, but just, what they're doing out there to make a difference.
Who are the some of the guys we're going to be talking with?
Well, you've got, Brad Patterson out in Colorado. Brad is... He's new to this process with Keystone, but not new to Keystone at all. I've known Brad for many years. I was just really glad when an opportunity came to snatch him up again. But We've got him out in the Denver area now. We've got Don Hose, who is based out of the Omaha area, but covers most Nebraska and Iowa for us. Scott Ampey from up in the Minneapolis area. He hubs out of St. Cloud, I believe, and handles all of Minnesota and Wisconsin for us. And then, of course, we got Matt here, who kind of hubs out of the Sioux Falls area and South Dakota, North Dakota. And I think it's just an opportunity to let you know and our listeners know of the lengths that we go at Keystone to try to let people know that we're here to help folks. And we passed 20,000 people served from our inpatient program, and that doesn't even include the adolescents. It does not include all the folks that have come through our other services, our intensive outpatient program, of what lengths that we do to try to impact this thing called addiction.
Well, when we get done chatting with all these guys, you're going to come back in and join me again, right?
Sure, yeah, I'll hang around.
So we'll save the best for last?
Well, I don't know if it's the best. Maybe the oldest, the longest, the old geezer.
The orneriest?
Well, my boy told me, he said, what do we call you? Because we... I'm of that age now where you look around the room at family reunions for the old people and you're it. I don't know if you've got there yet, John. But,
not quite yet, but I'm getting
my boy introduced me as Uncle Grandpa to somebody. I didn't know what that meant, but it didn't sound good. So, we'll just save not the best, but how about the oldest for last? So.
We'll chat with you again in a bit. We're going to get Scott in here first, and we'll be chatting with Scott Ampey coming up in just a moment. Thanks for listening to Partners in Education. We'll have another live event at the bakery, not this month, but in May. So we'll be chatting more about that here at the end as well. Thanks for listening to Partners in Education on Sunny Radio.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
And right now we've been joined by Scott Ampey. Scott, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, thank you for being a part of this little program here. We're getting to know a little more about Keystone. It's kind of interesting. Over the last couple of months, we've been doing these Partners in Education programs, and we've had the opportunity to talk about a few select areas, but today we're going to be talking about a whole lot more. Now, Scott, I see here you're the Business Development Manager for, what was the area that you cover again?
Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Okay, so very cool. Those are good areas.
I'm doing a lot of traveling.
So do you guys get in a lot of debates about Vikings and Packers in those areas too, or?
Well, I've kind of lost hope with the Vikings, so I'm voting for the Packers.
There you go. Well, Keystone Treatment Center, and you said you also do some things with Birkwood. Now, what is Birkwood?
Birkwood Treatment Center is a 35-bed adult program. They don't have detox. They don't have an adolescent program. because of their location at the end of a cul-de-sac in a community, they can't have that higher level of mental illness. So they're dual diagnosis capable. And what I say about that is that they can handle the depression, the anxiety, but anything higher than that, like a high level of schizophrenic, bipolar, manic depressive, borderline personality disorder, they legally can't take those type of patients.
Okay.
So if a person they know they need intensive inpatient program, they know that they can't do it on their own. Berkwood is a fantastic place. It's next to a national forest.
Nice.
It's in the St. Croix River Valley. And they're suffering from depression and anxiety, and I don't know anybody that goes into treatment that doesn't suffer from that.
Yeah.
Fantastic location. Dr. Charlie Brooks, who's a PhD, who's the executive director there, has done a phenomenal job and really has turned it around 180 degrees from where it was just a few years ago. He does incorporate now the MAZE program. MAZE is an acronym for Making Alcoholics Anonymous Easier, and it really scientifically shows that you can increase the engagement of sobriety with these individuals at the 1 year mark over patients that don't get this type of training. So it's effective, it's a world-class treatment that's there, and it's very affordable, let's put it that way.
So how does that compare with the options that are available at Keystone?
Keystone, and this is where I do a quick over-the-phone assessment with either a client or the referent themselves, which would be like the clinical professional that I'm talking with. And I'm just asking questions, are they going to need, what are they addicted to? Are they using it on a daily basis? And if that's the case, then I would say most certainly Keystone is the place you want to go because they have the detox and the full medical care for that. A typical alcoholic, heroin addict is going to need 7, 10, 14 days just to get that voided and eliminated out of their system. And then they can roll right into the main program. Both programs, Berkwood and Keystone, are 12-step, but there are some differences there too. Now, Keystone can handle that higher level of mental illness. That's another component. They both have to be primary CD for both facilities, secondary mental illness or MI, but Keystone has that little niche as well.
Yeah.
They also have the 25-bed adolescent program, and that's for 13 years old on up to 18. They have the boys' wing, they have the girls' wing. Wonderful program. It truly is gender-specific, so they really keep them separated. Starting a romance when you're in treatment is not the right location for that.
I suppose.
No, that doesn't work very well. But they do have a teacher on staff. They can continue their pursuit of their GED while they're there,
Nice.
Which is good because sometimes with kids it takes more than 30 days. It could be up to 60. For those individuals that have a higher level of mental illness component, it can even go out to 90 days. And both facilities, we work primarily, being from Minnesota, we send a lot of patients to both facilities. And from Minnesota, we can utilize not only the Rule 25 or their county funding, but also primarily all the levels of insurance can go there as well. And we'll work with them and take care of that. Wisconsin's a different character in themselves. They don't like having patients leave their state, especially under their insurance programs that they have over there. There's a lot more hoops that you have to run through them, but hopefully in the future that will also be changing, and they'll understand that addiction is a lifelong malady that they're going to have to stay engaged and treat.
And come up with the plan that's best for each patient.
Oh, everything is individualized for each individual, based on the drug that they're utilizing, alcohol, mental illness component. It really is all brought together with the therapist, the addictionologist, the MDs on both staff. They will set up a preferred program for each individual.
Very nice. Again, visiting right now with Scott Ampey, Business Development Manager with Keystone Treatment Center. Now, why are you doing this? Why is it that, what drew you into this? Is there, when you talk about it, I can tell you're passionate about this, but why is that? I'm assuming there's a personal reason.
Well, I've been in sobriety myself for 10 years. I've gone through some trials and tribulations on my own. I have been in the medical industry for 20 years. Ever since 1995, I got into pharmaceuticals. Did that for 10 years, and then I've been working with the mental illness out of a hospital that's in Onamia, Minnesota, as well as working in home health, hospice, home health care. Out of the clear blue sky, I got a phone call asking if I'd be interested in a position. It was a recruiter that contacted me, and it's like, what a better way to really do the 12 step on a daily basis, but try to help individuals find treatment and care that they so desperately need to turn their lives around.
Yeah.
And so I jumped at the chance, met with the individual, Brad Patterson, who you're going to be meeting here soon, brought me on board, and the rest is history. I've been on board now I'm on my 5th year, and love it. We have a great team of individuals, all professional, and we're all passionate about helping the individuals that basically the patients that we used to be.
Yeah.
That's who we're now helping, and we can help pass that on down to those individuals too.
And I see that with each person that I work with at Keystone is this level of it's more than a job. I can tell for every single person that I've met there. It's not just a job to them. This is a calling.
It is. It really is. I mean, I don't worry about what I'm doing for the next 10, 15 years. I love and I'm passionate about what I'm doing right now. I love going to conferences, and you meet so many people at a conference. And everybody has a story of a loved one, a family member, children that are in need of help. And, hey, what do you have? What can you bring to the table? Yeah. What can you do for my siblings and patients? And it's like, I love working with that.
So what are some of the things that you're seeing right now in the areas that you're covering? Are there trends that you're seeing that are changing, or are things kind of the same as they've been all the time? Or
well, alcohol is still going to be the number one drug of choice that we seem to treat out there.
And it's the most accessible, I suppose, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere you turn.
It's the legal drug, you know. Yeah. The biggest, scariest thing that, about 10 years ago, methamphetamines came on the market. Everybody's cooking it in their garages and out in the farms and so forth. And they've kind of really helped reduce that. Then heroin came on board again. And unfortunately, that has really taken a strong hold because it's a cheap alternative to meds that OxyContin, Vicodin, and so forth, that a lot of individuals get addicted to that, and then their prescription dries up, and they find that this heroin that's on the street is extremely potent, and it's so much more affordable. They, and I hear this story, well, I don't think I'm a true addict because I'm snorting it or smoking it. It's only in time they're going to start injecting it and utilizing the IV, and it's a horrible thing. And I mean, we've had a number of stars have recently died. Philip Seymour Hoffman, they found him with a needle in his arm. The guy from, I forget his name, but Stone Temple Pilots, he just died from a drug overdose in Minneapolis. It's happening more and more, and we're seeing more and more kids. Not necessarily, these are kids that are, the bad kids or anything like that. These are your cheerleaders. These are your football stars and everybody else that got on and addicted to the pain meds, and now they're going into this level of heroin and so forth. And that's what's truly scary.
And that's the crazy thing is, a lot of the time when you think about this, you think, well, you see it in the movies, and in the movies it's it's always somewhere else, but this is potentially right next door, and you don't even necessarily know it.
It's in suburbia. It's right next door. I mean, these are fluid individuals, with doctorates and so forth, and their kids are getting involved with it. They themselves are getting involved with it, and that's where the government is really trying to hold back and trying to curb prescribing of the pain medications. Because, back when I was in school, you sprain an ankle, you get a couple Advil, you put ice on it, and you stay off it. And unfortunately now, I remember I was talking with a lady who they own a drug testing facility, and she says, what's scary now, Scott, is that this, in fact, as an example, we had a young lady who was volleyball, sprained her ankle really bad, and the doctor gave him 100 pills of Vicodin, and it's wow. What kind of message is that sending to our young people that you can take a pill and be cured when they don't realize that it's so highly addictive? Yeah. And where Advil, Tylenol with a good ice pack could really do the same benefit without having that addictive component to it.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for coming in and chatting with us here, and we appreciate you being a part of the program today. And
it was my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
We're really excited, and it's been a lot of fun over the last few months to work with Keystone to help get a good positive message out. Like I said, today, our partners in education, we're really talking to our partners at Keystone, and we're educating people about all the different things they do. So we'll have another guest coming your way in just a bit. Thank you so much for listening to Partners in Education right here on Sunny.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
Welcome back. Right now we have Don Hose joining us on Partners in Education. He's a community outreach rep with Keystone Treatment Center. How are you, sir?
I'm well, John. Thank you.
And you said you're from like the Omaha area?
I'm from the Omaha area. I work for Eric. I'm his guy in Nebraska and Iowa for community service or community rep for Keystone.
So you cover all of Nebraska and Iowa areas?
I do, yeah.
Very nice.
So our role is considered a marketing position. I like to think of it more as a community representative. We work with behavioral health organizations, clinicians, counselors, and that. Anyone that works with individuals that are seeking recovery from addictions.
Very nice. How long have you been doing this, Don?
I've been with them 3 years. It's going on to my fourth year now.
Now, what is an average week for you? What kind of stuff? Because I imagine they're probably all different, I suppose. There's no such thing as an average week.
Well, it's a unique position in that our responsibility is to make people aware of Keystone and our services, but it's in terms of a marketing, it's not like we can actually go out and recruit people and say, oh, you need treatment, you need to come to our service. So it's more of community awareness and answering a lot of questions on what our programs offer in terms of forms of substance abuse, whether it's alcohol, drugs, gambling. So an actual sample week, I guess, would be I work with, go to community events. There's a lot of coalition partners where behavioral health organizations, for example, Department of Health Human Services is based in several different regions based on basically counties. And so probation officers, educators, and then specifically agencies like some of the large ones would be Elysian Health, the hospitals, anywhere you would find clinical professionals that work with folks needing recovery. So nice. I work a lot with them. Then I visit and do presentations to agencies. For example, there might be a counseling agency that has half a dozen or more counselors, and I would schedule a presentation on our services or maybe in general addiction and treatment programs.
Very nice.
That makes sense.
So you kind of get the opportunity to meet people and let them know of all the things that Keystone can help their people with, basically.
Exactly. So the challenge I have in the Keystone is well known in the Dakotas, obviously. They've been up here for 42 years. So the further away you get from South Dakota, northern Nebraska, western Iowa, the less people may be aware of it. And so to make them aware that we're just from Omaha, it's a 3-hour ride. Yeah. And you get some pushback from people saying, well, that's too far to go, or I don't want to go out of state, or whatever. But I found from my personal story and from other people in recovery, it's often a good thing to get them removed from the situation they're in for 30 days or more, physically out of that environment. And
if it's something that's going to help in the long run, it's worth going around the world for if you have to.
Indeed.
So 3 hours ain't nothing.
It's not nothing.
Well, again, Don Hose is our guest right now. We talked kind of about what you do and where you do it in Nebraska and in Iowa. Now, how did you get involved in this? You've been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah. So I'm a late bloomer. I'm in recovery myself, coming up on about 7 years. There's a story in the AA Big Book about the guy that drank when he was young, quit drinking because it got in the way of his career and that, and then after he retired, started drinking and was dead within 5 years. That's kind of my story. I was a late bloomer. Had a very good career, successful career in telecommunications, IT sales. Kind of semi-retired in the early 2000s, and basically never expecting to be an alcoholic. It caught up with me. So within about 5 years, I was in pretty bad shape and ended up in the hospital. My brother saved my life, got me into a treatment center, which happened to be one of our good, I would say, partner organizations in that any treatment center that helps recovering addicts and alcoholics is a friend.
Yeah.
So I'm an alumni actually of Valley Hope in O'Neill.
Okay.
And I took to treatment and recovery, got very active in recovery services and in the 12-step programs and that. And I had a good friend, actually a couple friends that had relapsed, and I found out about Keystone and brought them up to Keystone. And the fellow that hired me to Keystone, he's no longer with us, Rod Bowder was our director of marketing at the time, knew that I had some experience in recovery myself, and he was taking the marketing position, and so the territory opened up. So he said, well, I got this slot for a community marketing rep in Nebraska, and so that's how I came on board. And I always describe it as kind of a dream job for a guy in recovery, because I'm passionate about the hope that recovery provides, not just from other individuals in recovery through 12-step programs, but through clinical services like Keystone.
Well, and for me, a weird little analogy, if I'm getting directions from somebody on how to get there, I want to know if they've been there before, because they know, you turn right at this, you turn left at that. So if you've been down that road and you know how to tell people to get there, that it's going to mean so much more. So I can tell that you really enjoy what you do, and it makes a big difference when you've been down that road. It does.
My counselors, and we find a lot of people in the recovery community that their work are people in recovery themselves, because they've been given, or I feel I've been given, a gift of a second chance. And having that is the premise by which 12-step programs are built too, is one person that's been to that place of hopelessness and despair, and seeing the encouragement and the hope that someone who is recovered or in recovery can provide. So it is huge. It's getting direction, and we have a little more credibility, I think.
Oh yeah, and you're giving them the hope that you've been given.
That's exactly right. In fact, one of my counselors during treatment said, apparently was looking pretty forlorn at one point, and he said, "You don't look like you have a lot of hope. Why don't you take some of mine until you get your own?"
Hey, there
and
you go.
That kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And that's what we do is offer hope. I had reached the point where I was pretty sure I had killed myself through drinking. My liver was shot, or at least I thought it was, and it was in pretty bad shape. And so you reach that point of hopelessness where, well, what's the point of getting sober now? And what I learned was, well, it's a big point, because your body will recover if you give it a chance.
Definitely.
And so it is truly a life-saving event.
Definitely. Well, Don, thank you so much for coming to chat with us today. Before I let you go, I'm going to find out the areas that you cover. What kind of things are you seeing out there? Are you seeing trends that are different than they've been in the past, or are things kind of the same?
Well, I don't have a lot of past to relate it to, but I can tell you this. I was the old guy when I was in treatment. So the people, there's about 40 of us that went through treatment together. A couple of us around my age, in the late 50s, but mostly young kids. By young, I mean anywhere from 17 to early 20s, mid-20s. And to that, what I call the generation of sobriety that I'm in, even though I'm an older guy, I got sober in that period of time. They're addicted to most everything. It's not just alcohol. It's not just meth. It's not just opiates. It's anything and everything. So I think that's, now that I've had some experience in attending 12-step meetings where I see people who have been in recovery a number of years and people in recovery just a few months or even just a few years, there's quite a difference there. The old-timers got sober. They were only alcoholics. They don't understand addicts and drugs. So I guess from my perspective, I see the generations that are of people that are just now getting sober, or getting sober, say, in the last 5 to 10 years, have a different history of addiction than necessarily the person that was just a heroin addict or just an alcoholic. So what I'm seeing is everything. The counselors and agencies that I work with They have clients that are the big thing right now is prescription drug overdose deaths and prescription drug abuse. It's huge. It's really a huge problem. And what's happening is those people, when they cannot get a prescription anymore, either going to heroin or if they had any tendency to addiction, will bring on alcohol or other substances. So.
Well, thanks for the perspective from. I wish it would have been a little more bright and cheerful, but no, I'm just kidding. I understand that when.
No, and I certainly don't want to leave that message because the message is truly hope.
Yeah,
people can and do recover.
And that is the bright and cheerful part of the message here is that if you're looking for help, if maybe you're listening to this and it's resonating with you, saying, "Hey, that's me," or "That's somebody in my family," there is help. There is hope for you. And I know the folks at Keystone would love to help you. So, Don, thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
And we're going to have some more guests coming your way. And between now and then, we'll have a message from Keystone that has the number to call if you'd like to get some help. Thank you so much for listening to Partners in Education.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
And we're back right now with Partners in Education. Right now we're being joined by Brad Patterson. Brad, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for allowing us to share our stories.
We're really glad to have you here. And this Partners in Education, this has been so much fun. Over the last couple of months, we've had specific programs talking about specific areas. And today, we're Partners in Education. We're really learning about our partners at Keystone, and we're being educated on all the different things that you guys do, which I think this is a really fun opportunity. So, Brad, the area that you cover is kind of the Colorado area?
Yes, I just have returned to Keystone to try to bring clients from Colorado to our wonderful program in Canton.
Very, very nice. Now, you were with Keystone before that. What was the...
I actually got to spend 7 years with Keystone, where I got to be the former director of marketing and business development, and then was privileged to work with another local company as a clinical supervisor, clinical director, and I am now back at what I love best in reaching out to a most needing demographic. Yeah. Colorado very much needs the excellence that Keystone provides. Yeah. They have a pretty strong recovery community, but their treatment providers are substandard to the Keystone excellence. I say that with confidence. There are a handful of programs out there, and they just don't truly reach the elemental spirit of the client, and that's what Keystone does so very well. I know that's what they did for me back in December of 1998, and I began my recovery journey with the great, nearly perfect introduction that Keystone provided. I remember the day I walked in. I remember the great groups. I remember education. I remember family program. And still today it resonates as foundational stones in my recovery.
Those building blocks that really make you, first of all, help you get the help that you need, but also look what it's done for you. It's changed your life.
Yes. What's interesting as I share with sponsees and potential clients for Keystone is that oftentimes people will get done with a 30-day treatment program and think, okay, I've arrived. I'm now sober 30 days and everything's in order. Well, the reality is that essentially the whole first year needs to be about laying a foundation. The idea of building during that first year is really not recommended by anybody in the program. What we really want to do is clear away the wreckage of the past. And essentially through the process of recovery and treatment, we actually just begin to prepare for building. The building should not take place with any sort of urgency. Yeah. What we're just trying to do is embrace the new healing that's available, embrace the amazing changes that take place when we give up compulsive behaviors and chemicals. Oh my gosh, it just seems impossible to imagine a life without these kind of things. And just move forward towards this idea of preparing to build. the whole first year of a person's early recovery should be about just preparing to build.
And if you think about that like a job site, the guys that are digging the hole are not there the same day as the guys that are pouring the concrete and the guys that are, building the framework. If they were all there on the same day, it'd be kind of a mess, wouldn't it?
Just absolute chaos.
But there are phases that they go through, and they get the hole dug first, and then they get the foundation, and then they build on that foundation. And from what you're saying, it's kind of the same way with recovery.
Ironically, the greatest threat. The greatest threat to successful recovery is this sense of urgency. I'm too late. I've got to go make a bunch of money. I've got to repair my family and my marriage. The reality is all these things tend to almost repair themselves if they're given the time. They talk about recovery and treatment being a selfish program. What that means for the person who doesn't understand is that we've got to take care of this foundation first. Allow the healing to begin, and then we can move forward. One of the classic sabotages to anybody in early recovery is actually job or relationship change. Oh, yeah. And so what we see people doing is they'll come out of treatment and they'll go back to the company that sponsored their insurance, and they'll come up with this great idea. Well, you know what? I'm going to go into business for myself. Or they're in a marriage of 12 years and they get divorced during that first year. Or they're not in a relationship and they say, okay, now that I'm sober, I've got to find the one. And in all those circumstances, again, with 17 years in experience, I just share the idea of that patient connection to the fellowship, the connection to alumni groups, the connection to counseling. All of those are great first-year programs. The idea of maybe getting back into school, that's an okay investment. Getting back to the gym, those are great. Looking at your diet, those are great things that you can add to your foundation. But again, at least a full year before you make major move changes, you leave the state. All of these things are classic scenarios. So the idea of just relaxing and saying, okay, this is a new opportunity, and I'm gonna let this be my healing season.
Definitely. Our guest right now, Brad Patterson with Keystone. Now, again, you cover the Colorado area. One of the things that's changed quite a bit in the last few years in Colorado, they changed this law, and marijuana is now legal there. How, as an insider in the industry and also being in the Colorado area, how has that affected the state?
Well, I want to comment on something that a lot of people don't understand. What is most amazing is that there has recently been a diagnostic tool that has basically been a little bit of a hurdle for the treatment providers to strongly address marijuana addiction. Marijuana addiction is very real. And unfortunately, it is interpreted by the DSM-5 as something not requiring an inpatient care, an inpatient level of care. So people who are addicted to marijuana must basically deal with an outpatient providing service. And what that means is instead of staying in a supervised place where they can't access their drug of choice, they're going home every day. They may attend 3 sessions a week for 3 hours, about 9 hours of counseling a week, but they're staying at home, they're staying with family, they're staying in the same environment where they've been using. And in Colorado, this is a really severe thing. The number of relapses for people in outpatient programming on marijuana is extremely high. Even drug testing outpatient programs see it almost insurmountable that they just get that necessary sobriety. The other thing that really has been an amazing observation after the legalization of marijuana has been productivity rates amongst employees across the board. These are not addicts and alcoholics, but since the legalization of marijuana, what they have determined is that the actual collective rate of productivity in Colorado has gone down significantly, and they've put a price tag on it in the neighborhood of just about the same amount of revenue that's being generated by taxes.
Oh, wow.
So there's this term, they basically came up with this mystical, magical $100 million in new taxes based on the marijuana sale.
Yeah.
But the reduction in productivity of Colorado workers exceeds that. So the governor recently said we may have leapt too soon. And so they are reflecting on how they may offer a type of restriction of use, and we'll see how it unfolds. But essentially, it is not the panacea that everybody wanted it to be. It is not without challenges, and there are many advocates that are nearly religious in their advocacy of pro-marijuana agendas. And the fact is that they are only telling one half of the story. The reality is that people are getting addicted, people are reducing their productivity, and that needs to be looked at.
Definitely. Again, Brad Patterson with Keystone. What are the things that you're seeing in the area that you cover? I've been asking everybody else some of the trends, if you've seen things that are changing over the last few years. I suppose in Colorado with the legalization, that's been a big change, but are you seeing other things as well?
One of the things that I would probably say is the highest in the area is, of course, general utilization. What's really humorous is that there were a handful of quote-unquote law-abiding individuals who would not try marijuana because it was not legal. Now that it is legal, you have the explorers, which actually has caused an increase in this utilization. It has caused an increase in addictive problems. It has caused a decrease in statewide productivity of employees. You see an increase in absenteeism and in injuries on job sites. So these are natural byproducts of the legalization of marijuana. There is also perhaps a collective push because of the progress made with marijuana that there are folks that are actually arguing for legitimizing all quote-unquote illegal drugs. And the taxation they claim would be great, but the bottom line is that there are much more addictive drugs even than marijuana, and the idea of just saying that there's no illegal drugs is absolutely an absurd, simplistic generalization. As far as drug trends or drug use trends, I would say the highest is the return of injectable and smokable heroin. We see the same trends in South Dakota, and the reality is that what is very severe about any opiate, that includes prescription, is the high rate of addiction that takes place when these chemicals are abused. And so where you may see a person take 3 to 10 years to become fully addicted to alcohol, it can literally be 3 to 10 uses of heroin to have somebody, especially if they're injecting, where they are fully addicted and chemically dependent, and the only way that they can really come off of that is through an inpatient procedure. Wonderfully, at Keystone, we have a specialized track for opioid-dependent clients.
Nice.
And so we can, if they're on prescription or heroin or other variations, we can really care for them at a very special level. We have a very wonderful clinical way to bring somebody off of an opiate, but our goal in all regards is sobriety first. And we want to see somebody experience the holistic healing that comes from being chemical free.
Having a clear mind.
Clear mind, clear heart, clear body, clear spirit. So,
very nice.
The other thing I just want to say, and this is a very subtle concept, but one of the things that I really think is driving some of these choices is the fact that there is a changing spirituality to the state of Colorado, and the bottom line is that there are good folks out there, but there also are folks that are drifting. And in that drifting, we tend to see people looking for alternative solutions. And when they start looking for these alternatives, drugs and alcohol become very quickly adopted. And so the reality is that, again, Keystone has a wonderful way to help people reconnect spiritually. And again, the reason why I'm there is we really feel like we provide an exceptional array of services that really would be valuable to the clients and the referral sources in Colorado, and we're really hoping to build a bridge that becomes a lasting resource for our family in Canton.
Well, thank you again for stopping in and chatting with us here, Brad.
Thank you.
Again, Brad Patterson right there with Keystone. We've got some more guests we'll be chatting with in just a bit. Thank you so much for listening today to our special edition of Partners in Education. Like I said, today we're learning more about our partners at Keystone, and we're being educated on all the wonderful things that they're doing for people. If you know of somebody that would maybe be somebody that fits in to the things we're talking about where they would need some help with addiction, stick around here. We're going to have a message that'll play in a second that'll have a phone number that you can call and get all the details on how you can help out that loved one. Stick around. We've got, like I said, more guests coming up next on Partners in Education.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
And welcome back. We have Matt joining us right now. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, John?
Good. We get to talk to you every month. But this month, like I've been saying so far in the program, is a little different. This Partners in Education, we're getting to know our partners at Keystone, and we're being educated about what you guys do. So first of all, let's talk about what you do at Keystone.
My role at Keystone is varied. I am a territory rep for South Dakota and North Dakota, and so I cover that area geographically, reach out to counselors, doctors, therapists, mental health providers, practitioners, all sorts of folks, teachers who may interact with people who have a substance use issue, whether it's alcohol, drugs, compulsive gambling as well, and I let them know what options are available, and I'm there as a resource. Whether or not they send to Keystone, I know a lot of great treatment centers and a lot of other programs that may be a fit for what a person might need who's looking to get help.
So you're making sure that you're available to let people know that, hey, here's who I am and here's what I do, and if you have a need, be sure to refer people my way.
Yeah, I get to be kind of, in some ways it's like an air traffic controller. Oh, you need this. Oh, I know who does that. They're over there. Oh, you need this. Okay, boom. And
you're concierge.
I love it, kind of, in a way, that concierge valet service, VIP service. Every time you talk to me, I love to do that, and it just fills my heart when I see people getting help and see people getting well, because there's a lot of really horrific things going on in this world, and a lot of inner turmoil that people see in their lives, and it's just wonderful to be able to connect them with a resource that may be a fit for their needs.
Over the last few months, we've gotten to know each other pretty well, and one of the things that I can say, Matt is the same on the radio as he is off the radio. He's a very vibrant, happy, upbeat person, and I can tell that you love what you do. So why is that? What got you into this field, Matt?
Well, I kind of got tricked into coming into this field. I was 5 years sober, and a gentleman that was in charge of a treatment center for adolescents, he said, Matt, I need some help, and you seem to have, something going on, and I think you'd really like working with these teenage alcoholics and drug addicts. To which I said, no, I'm not interested. Thank you. He was a good friend of mine, and thankfully he was very persistent, and he managed to twist my arm into trying it and to entering the field. And I happened to have been an alumni of that same program as a teenager. I went through two treatment programs as a teenage drug addict and alcoholic, and this was one of those programs. So I had a great affinity for that program and for what they do. And this guy was a good personal friend, and he twisted my arm into trying it. And I've been trying to leave the field ever since. It's been 15 years in the field. I've got to take a couple little breaks now and then, but
you got to get your job done first. When all the problems are solved, then you can quit, right?
Well, I'll let God be the judge of that. He just won't let me leave the field, and I'm okay with that, honestly. Yeah. I'm really grateful to be in the field that I'm in. As long as I can be helpful to people. And if God needs somebody to do work in Hawaii
Hey.
I'll be happy to do. No, I'm just kidding. I love
put that
South
out
Dakota as well. I
So-
love it. Yeah.
No, we've talked to people on the program here today that cover Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa and Nebraska and Colorado. So you kind of cover South Dakota, or are there other areas too?
I cover South Dakota and North Dakota.
I forget about them once in a while, but they're up there, and they're good neighbors, so we can't forget those guys.
You know, honestly, we could take away the border between South Dakota and North Dakota, make us into one state, and divide California into
there you
Northern
go.
California, Southern California. They would like that. We wouldn't notice.
Yeah, there you go.
Probably. Or you could lob off New York City from New York State. They would appreciate that
think
a
they
lot.
would.
Especially upstate New Yorkers would appreciate that, I believe. So we could do without the border here and probably
We're pretty
save.
similar.
Yeah, I mean, South Dakota, North Dakota, we could save some good money on government resources if we just combine ourselves, don't you think?
Half as many flags would be needed. And
Well, no, we still would have 50 stars on the flag
Yeah.
if we.
but I mean, we'd have just
yeah.
one state flag that we'd share. So
That's right.
That would work.
One government building. I mean, economies of scale all in one here.
Eric's back here shaking his head. He doesn't think that's going to work. So let's talk about this though. As you're out there in North and South Dakota, what kind of things are you seeing, and have the trends changed at all, or are they kind of the same as they've been for a while?
Well, yes and no. You know, alcohol is always a big issue for a lot of people. It's accessible, it's legal, and people drink it and they feel wonderful. And a lot of times it becomes their solution to living. And then what happens is eventually that solution can become a problem. And then, it doesn't work out very well in the end. Sometimes they turn to drugs or they turn to gambling. We see alcohol, number one. We've seen a huge rise in opiates. I think a lot of folks get prescribed something from their doctor, perhaps, and that's what gets them started. Maybe doctor gets them cut off, or they build a tolerance.
Now, we've heard opiates
yeah.
in this program quite a bit today. Let's talk about what that is, because I'm not in the biz. What is an opiate?
An opiate, great question. Great question. Opiates are typically used for pain relief in a medical setting. So that's oxycodone, Oxycontin, Percocet, Percodan, same thing, Vicodin.
Things along those lines. This sounds like a beautiful flower. I
Yeah.
have a bunch of opiates growing in my garden, but it's not it.
Well, yeah, but it all stems from opium.
Okay.
As
that
a plant. Yeah, they're
something
all,
to do with the flower then. Wow.
Yeah, they're all derived.
I was just kidding. So.
Yeah. No, it's a perfect analogy. It's right there. And heroin is also a derivative of opium. And so what happens is a lot of people will get hooked on opium, maybe in a medical setting. They were originally designed in the medical setting for end-of-life chronic terminal pain.
Okay.
Or not chronic terminal pain, but just terminal pain towards end of life. Now we use them to manage chronic pain in a medical setting, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying.
And it's very addictive, it sounds like.
It can be. It can be. And there's been a lot of national research about how opioids as medications are overprescribed.
Okay.
And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to cast aspersions on anybody.
Sure.
But I know that there are a lot of folks that get hooked in that way and then end up in the long haul turning to street heroin.
Again, our guest right now, Matt Walls with Keystone Treatment Center. And again, appreciate you being here. So we talked a little bit about what you're seeing out there, and you kind of told us a little bit about your story as to why you're doing all of this stuff. If there are people listening right now that are saying, I'm having some issues. This is something that I'm struggling with. What kind of advice do you give to somebody that's going through this right now?
Well, I believe that you can't change something unless it's acknowledged as a problem. So unless I acknowledge it, I can't move to change it. So if you've identified if a person's identifying something as a problem in their life, that's a great step to be able to say, well, wait a second, can I do something about this problem? And then the next question is, what can I do about this problem? And I think that, if a person's struggling with alcohol or drugs or compulsive gambling, Keystone's a great place to call as a resource.
Very nice. We're going to give you the number here again in the break. Thank you so much for listening to another edition of Partners in Education. Like I said, this is a little different version than what we've done the last couple of months, but it's been a lot of fun. Got to know Matt a whole lot more this time. It's been fun to get to know you over the last few months, but got to learn a little more about Matt. Coming up, we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Partners in Education. Thanks for listening to Sunny Radio.
Keystone Treatment Center would like to help you kick your addiction. Whether you struggle with drugs, alcohol, or some other addiction, Keystone may be able to help you find freedom. Call our toll-free number to learn more at 1-844-204-1055. Thousands of success stories from clients all over the country. Be the next success story. Get the help you need from Keystone Treatment Center. Chances are your addiction will not go away on its own. Get the pain to stop and let freedom begin. It starts with a call, 1-844-204-1055.
Thank you again for listening to another edition of Partners in Education. And this has been kind of a different episode, Eric. We've got Eric Miller joining us again here. It's a little different than what we've been doing in the past. And we've got another program. Let's talk about May. We've got a program coming back up in May.
Yeah, we do. We're going to actually be meeting Matt and I tomorrow morning, and we're going to be finalizing the entire rest of the year,
Nice.
Partners in Education process. With everything we've had going out in Pierre and stuff, honestly, it's just had to take a little bit of a back seat for
I
a month.
understand.
Matt's really my partner in this deal and this partner's process, and as well as the folks from NAMI. So I think we're just giving everybody a break, and we'll be back strong in May. And when we come back next month, we'll have the rest of the year
Nice.
in place for you, so we can kind of talk about what we're
Well, we'll be
covering here.
excited to have you back. Now,
Yeah.
before I let you go, I've been asking everybody else how they got tied into this little program that you guys have here at Keystone, and I can tell each one of them, yourself included.
So what did you think of this group? I told
it's
you
a
that
good group of people. I'll tell you what, every single one of them, I can tell they care very much about other people, and they want to do something for others that they know they can do because they've done it for themselves. They've improved their life by getting the help that they needed. So I can tell in each and every one of them that they're saying, I want to help other people, and this is a great way to do it. And so
you can tell. I hope that the folks can tell why they're good at what they do.
Oh man, very good.
The thing that I think that I like to surround myself with people. I think one word my dad always passed in: integrity.
Yeah.
I hope that came across with the folks. But
Definitely.
To answer your question, how did I get into this? Obviously, we've talked off the air on several occasions. To be in this field in some way, you've had to have been touched by it.
Sure.
I grew up with alcoholism. Swore never to go down that road.
Yeah.
Became exactly the thing I hated.
Yeah.
Developed my own addictions. Literally, almost took my life.
Wow.
In my 20s. I was one of the young guys when I got help, and how I got help was by accident. I look back at it now, and I put it under a different heading of maybe some divine intervention, but
Yeah.
just the way things happened to where I ended up in Keystone Treatment Center. Quite honestly, I was not a part of that decision-making process because I was, for most part, incapacitated.
Oh, wow.
And that the people that were behind that process to get me in, honestly, without them being there at the exact right time, there would have been a funeral.
I'm glad that they were there.
Yeah, so is my wife, and so is my kids.
Yeah.
None of that would have transpired. But in fact, earlier this month was I just celebrated completing my 30th year.
Awesome.
Of continuous sobriety since that day. And honestly, when I look back at it, that's where life began for me. It really did.
Yeah.
In my 20s, it began. And it's amazing to me how my perception at that time is that life was over. Because I had burned all the bridges, and, there was just no more time. I felt, I love music, but it talks about where you feel like you're an 80-year-old man in a 20-year body, and that's what I felt like. And I ended up in Keystone, got in touch with the folks there that literally led me out of active addiction into active recovery. I'm living a life, honestly, I don't deserve. What I love is just some of the simple things of why I do what I do, because I've owned businesses, as you.
Yeah.
I've been involved in sales all my life. If I believe in the product or service, I can sell darn near anything. So why do we sell what we do? And I think this goes to each one of these guys that you met with this week.
Yeah.
Today, it's why we do is that we have a passion for advancing this cause of recovery. It gets under your skin. I know what it's meant for my family. I know what it meant for my parents, both now passed, but I know what it meant with them after conversations. I know what it means to my siblings. I know what it's meant to my current wife, who I never would have met. We share recovery. To both my boys. To not have to have ever seen me drunk. That I'm actually actively engaged. But most off is what I've got as a purpose today of living. And hindsight, they say, is 20/20. The old man used to always tell me that. You look back, everything's a straight line. I look back in my 30 years, and it leads me right to where I stand today.
Yeah.
It's a direct line. I do believe that everything I've done has prepared me for opportunities to lead operations like we do today with Keystone and with Acadia Health. I'm just honored to work with this group of guys. But to me, the bottom line is when I looked at the census today of the facilities that I work with, I try to stop long enough as I look at those numbers. Every one of those numbers is an individual.
Yeah.
That, as of today, is safe in the best environment that they possibly could be in to change their life. Behind them is wives, parents, siblings.
Yeah.
When I remember to step back and see the big picture of what we're doing, it reminds me of one of my favorite books, and I know we were talking about books before, by an author, Ogmandino. And he wrote a book about the greatest salesman in the world, and he was a rag picker. Great book if you haven't read it.
I haven't. I'll have to check it out.
And I remember it kind of set a course for me, is that, follow me and I'll teach you how to be a fisherman of men's souls.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do.
Awesome.
I feel that this, in some small way, can pay back the multitude of people that have brought me to this point to where life means something. I have a sense of purpose, and I don't have to live in that hell, which is addiction.
Yeah.
It is literally a living hell. And anything that we can do at Keystone, anything that we can do as individuals in fostering, from moving from sickness to getting well, we're all in.
Definitely.
And so that's why we do what we do, John.
Well, thank you for doing what you do, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I need to give you a hug now when we're done.
I feel a hug, a group hug coming
There's a hug coming on. Hey, folks, if you would like to learn more, or if you would like to maybe even find out if there's some help for you in your own personal life, I'm going to give you that phone number we've been talking about here. It's a toll-free number, 844-204-1055. And that's the number to reach out to the folks at Keystone. We'll be back next month with another edition of Partners in Education. Thank you again for joining us. That number one last time, toll-free, 844-204-1055. Thank you so much for listening to Partners in Education on Sunny Radio.